All right, I'm live. Thanks for joining me. I'm back again. It is 10:04, so I'm 4 minutes late, but I'm going to try to be on time and at 10 p.m. pretty much every night. So I guess I'll get started because my plan is to just cut this stuff up for content for YouTube. I was originally doing those kind of scripted videos that were based on, my Substack articles or things that I was working on in my books. But I think that I'm gonna. I really like the kind of free flowing ranting and conversation a little bit more. I think the scripted stuff just doesn't come across natural. So I'm just gonna kind of do it like this, and a lot of times just go through the research that I'm doing or commenting on whatever I'm watching. So that's kind of how I'm going to handle it. Last night, I looked through some of the Epstein files with that application that had facial recognition. And we actually found a couple of interesting things. One was the director of the new Melania movie was like really, really friendly with Jean-Luc Brunel, which was definitely weird. But I think he's also had other accusations against him unrelated to Epstein, so that wasn't super surprising. And then there was a couple of things that I missed too. One, I actually looked at in the video, but I didn't have audio for it, and the audio is actually insanely disturbing. If you were joining last night, you would have remembered this this video here of Steven Pinker and Jeffrey Epstein on probably Jeffrey Epstein's private jet. So it automatically was muted last night, so I didn't hear in the background. You hear like a child's voice say, "Where are you taking me?" I'm gonna play it a few times, try to see if I got the right volume, but it's pretty nuts. And this guy is still very well respected. He's doing some debate sponsored by Bank of America in a couple weeks, which we'll take a look at in a couple minutes. But do you hear that? I'm going to turn it up. Yeah, maybe where are you taking us? That's very strange. And it's not clear. It's not clear like what the other context is. Like as far as did they only have that 4-second video, or was this a part of a longer video where you can hear more going on in the background, or they're moving around, or you could see more people in? It seems strange to take a 4-second video like this, unless it was one of those situations where you have like the function on the phone that you don't know how to use, and you're using like a smartphone, and you accidentally take like a short video of it. I know that that's happened before, so it could be a situation like this. But I definitely wonder if there was something more to that. The other interesting thing that happened since last night was another one of the photos that we noticed yesterday. Let me share that again, actually. It was the one that slipped through where it had, let's see how, okay. It had like a couple of pictures of, also there's new videos of them going through searching the house. It's not really anything interesting. It's, a lot of the same stuff we saw in the photos last night. And whatever cop was taking this video was really doing well to not see anything, You could just see how like poor camera work they have here. It's just zooming in on random stuff and you know, not really getting a view of the whole room. The photos were actually quite a bit better, so I won't pay a whole bunch of attention to that. There's a couple of videos like that, and then there's also witness testimonies, which despite being blacked out like that, the things they talk about probably would not be good on YouTube. But I'm going through a separate file here that actually has the thing we looked at last night. And the interesting thing about this is that it was removed from the actual DOJ files. So this was a picture with Trump in it that actually accidentally got through. They probably have tons more. It's actually been reported that they have a lot more of him, but it's all been redacted or held back. And this has been reported for many, many months. So here is the picture. And you'll see here, you have Trump there, young women or girls in bikinis, got that picture behind that everybody's seen. Unclear if there are more images of Trump in here, but there's obviously a lot of pictures there. So this photo was originally in the DOJ files, and people obviously saw it, made a big deal about it yesterday, and they removed it. They removed the file. Seeing if I could see any names in here real quick, because I couldn't figure out how to zoom yesterday. Nope. So yeah, they actually removed the file from the DOJ online registry. So I'm going to take a look at a news report about that now. Let's see. See if I could find this. Obviously, I'm just going to go with a run-of-the-mill mainstream news report. I'll give some commentary
I'd
and
first
stuff.
like to ask you about this missing photo that my colleague Fallon was just talking about from the DOJ release, and the post on X by the Oversight Democrats. Put this all together.
Well, nobody knows what happened, but I suspect somebody saw the photo there and demanded that it be removed immediately. So there would only be a handful of people who would have that kind of power to override what had been, disclosed before, and there wouldn't be that many people who would be, I would say, irrational enough to think that that wouldn't be noticed. But beyond that, it's hard to know who's behind it.
All right, well, let's talk about the law, which was signed by the president on November 19th, requiring the DOJ to release all unclassified Epstein materials within 30 days. And yet, DOJ admits it's only a partial disclosure. There's more to come. And many of these documents were heavily redacted. I had my colleague print out some of them here. I mean, for those of you who haven't seen this, okay,
Yeah,
this is grand jury.
Exactly why a particular redaction is taking place, rather than just blacking out an entire document like that. And, a lot of the file looks like that, like, ransom notes kind of pieced together and just blacked out all over the place.
Yeah, let's see.
Do members of the Oversight Committee have even an inkling of what was redacted? I mean, 500 plus pages that were blacked out. Can Congress compel the DOJ to at least explain?
Epstein file removed.
Well, Congress could if the Speaker of the House, who controls the office of the House Counsel,
they made it
would be willing to report. I think
they made it so you could download it, and everybody obviously downloaded. A bunch of journalists downloaded to look through it easier. I was looking through it with a bunch of different applications last night of other people who had downloaded it and put their own code to it. Where you can see where it's already downloaded. Yeah, I'll share the link here in the chat. There are two links that are good. This one here, let's see. That one's like a general Google link that I just posted. And then there's also this really cool Versal app that you can actually search the names of the people. It uses facial recognition to identify some of the people. It doesn't identify all of them. And there are a few of them that are incorrect too. You could go through the video that I made last night, and you could kind of see the highlights from that and the ones that I was able to find. And basically, I just looked through the names and then looked them up on Wikipedia, saw what they were about and what they were connected to and everything. And that kind of it was quite interesting because even though it wasn't a lot of new information, it did tie a lot of things together. And there was, of course, still a couple of Trump connections, even though they tried to hide it. And while I'm on this subject, there were a lot of people that came at me on various social media platforms saying like, "Why are you only concerned about Trump?" And it's like, I'm definitely not. I went through everybody that we could find last night, but he is the one who is actively covering it up right now, and he is looking suspicious as hell. Like this situation here where they are releasing files and then removing them when they find that he's in them. And this happened in a few situations. And then there was the grand jury documents, which they released with redacted with his name on it. And then today, I wasn't able to find a good link to look through on screen, but the judge from that case actually released the unredacted files, and they did have his name in it. So it's just like the active cover up of it, and it's how extremely guilty he looks. But obviously, Steven Pinker is, from what I understand, from the liberal establishment, of course, not leftist, but the conservative liberals, essentially. He would probably identify as a Democrat, but I would consider him right wing nonetheless. Let's see if there's anything else interesting in here. I looked through and it doesn't seem like
was asking
it.
the question,
But
why
I'm gonna try to find
members weren't
another
ready to go
one
to
that's
court.
a little bit
Individual
better.
members of the House don't have standing to go. The minority doesn't have standing to get in there. If anybody's got standing, it is the majority and the speaker speaking for the entire House. Now, this was something that was voted on by the entire House, so you think we should be able to push forward, but it just looks like a game of cat and mouse and hide and go seek with the Republicans. They're doing everything in their power to sandbag the investigation that they're pretending to support.
So in a September FBI hearing, Congressman Thomas Massie said the FBI was holding back 20 names of suspected Epstein clients, including figures in the music industry, finance, politics, banking. Kash Patel denied the FBI was holding anything back. But did we learn
So
anything
many
from
of
that
these
front
are
from this
as
first release of
told,
files? And if
and
not,
I'm not
do you
trying to
expect we
watch
will?
that guy.
Well, we should be able to. That 20, of course, is a very
A
conservative
lot of
estimate
news
of
hasn't
the
covered
names that are
this
in there.
yet.
You don't run a decades-long, multi-billion-dollar sex trafficking ring around the world with just 20 clients or 20 people involved. I mean, this is a major financial, business, managerial operation and criminal operation. So it's going to be a lot more than that. And look, these names will come out. Remember that a lot of the victims know exactly who is in there, but they don't want to cross these, billionaires or government officials or people who occupy real
I think
positions
it's definitely going to go down at some point. They're gonna. I mean, it might take until he gets out of office if they continue to stonewall on this. But yeah, absolutely, every one of them need to be locked up. It's crazy how obvious and out in the open this was for so long, and it's just crazy. It was so much a part of that culture. And the modeling agency thing, they don't talk enough about that, I don't think, in the media. And of course, Trump's all over that too, because he had his own thing, and that so did John-Luc Brunel, and they were like targeting teens in that situation and in those days. So it was kind of crazy, to say the least. But yeah, it sucked because this I didn't pre-watch any of this. So I just saw that that they were talking about the file being removed, and then they only mentioned it for like 2 seconds. So let's move on to the Syria situation and see what happened there. We apparently got more ramp up of war in Syria, and everybody's asking like, why is there even what was that? Something outside my window. Why is there even soldiers in Syria? because that's the whole reason they are striking Syria now, is because soldiers were killed there, and it's like we shouldn't be there in the first place. And yeah, I'm gonna just find one of these random things. Let's see what this guy has to say.
I'm also pleased to announce that just 2 hours ago, we hit the ISIS thugs in Syria who were trying to regroup after their decimation by the Trump administration. I ordered a massive strike on the terrorists that killed our 3 great patriots last week. 2 soldiers, 1 interpreter, all great people. And it was very successful. It was precision. We hit every site flawlessly, and we are restoring peace through strength all over the world. I settled 8 wars in 10 months, destroyed the Iran nuclear threat, ended the war in Gaza, and got the release of hostages.
He didn't end the war on Gaza. This guy's crazy. Yeah, he thinks he's like the people that actually bought into that. I don't know how they did, especially because of the way his administration was last time. Heard it was a lone gunman who did it too. Oh yeah. Really? With that would be crazy. Yeah. It's wild too, because like nobody really wants these wars anymore. There are, of course, the corporate class wants that, and there are some people who are just, rabidly hate everybody and they want to bomb everybody. And then there's also this kind of American exceptionalist attitude where people have this idea where they think that that the United States bullying everybody around is actually beneficial to the average person living here. But that's not the situation at all. Like, yeah, a lot of rich people here are better off because of the colonization that we do in other countries and the dollar's status as the global reserve currency. Like that really does help the people at the very, very top of the economy, but it really doesn't help the average person. And I want to do a whole video on this, a well-researched one where I'm not just like going off the dome, but there is a lot of research behind that. And because it has impacts on the labor market and things like that, and how much we pay for things in general. It's kind of the same concept of how the tariffs screw us as well. Even though it's sold as something that brings money in. But yeah, I got off on a little bit of a tangent there. But yeah, like the whole concept of unipolarity, like there must be one country that dominates the rest and makes all the rules. It's really not how anything has ever worked, even though there has been, if the way history is described, there is always kind of one country that is described as being the best colonizer at certain points. But the idea that the entire world is revolving around the currency of one country is definitely a very new thing, and it isn't working out well for anybody. And all of these wars are to protect that. And it's not just about extracting the resources, although that's a big part of it. It's also about protecting that global reserve currency status, because our currency would have collapsed, during the at like 70s if that didn't happen. And that was this like scheme by Henry Kissinger and Richard Nixon. Yeah. Actually, that might be a cool thing to dig into in a couple minutes after this. We'll just like see what's actually going on, like maybe a 1 minute 3-minute thing here.
Good evening.
And
We're
I'll
coming on the
find
air a little bit
something
earlier
on
than
the
normal because ABC News has just confirmed that the
and
U.S. has
how
launched
that
a
started.
large military strike against multiple targets in central Syria. Retaliation for the deadly ambush killing 2 American soldiers and their civilian interpreter, a U.S. interpreter. U.S. Central Command saying American forces are actively executing a large-scale strike against weapons and ISIS infrastructure. In fact, we just heard from Secretary Pete Hegseth, who has tweeted earlier today, U.S. forces commenced Operation Hawkeye Strike in Syria to eliminate ISIS fighters, infrastructure, and weapon sites in direct response to the attack on U.S. forces that occurred on December 13th in Palmyra, Syria. A U.S. official telling ABC News tonight the strike involves fighter jets, attack helicopters, artillery, dozens upon dozens of targets. The operation aimed at delivering a significant blow to ISIS remnants, ISIS infrastructure, and eliminating ISIS weapons. The strikes are targeting multiple locations in central Syria. Prior to the airstrikes, U.S. partners in the region with U.S. support led 10 operations resulting in the capture or killing of 23 ISIS operatives. These operations were a prelude to the current large-scale strikes now underway tonight. And as I mentioned, this all comes after last Saturday, Sergeant William Howard and Sergeant Edgar Torres Tovar, both of Iowa, and their U.S. interpreter were all killed by a lone ISIS gunman. They were the first U.S. combat deaths in Syria since 2019 and since the fall of President Bashar al-Assad. President Trump attending their dignified transfer on Wednesday. He previously vowed ISIS would be, quote, hit hard for the ambush. I want to get right to our chief White House correspondent, Mary Bush. She's live at the White House tonight. Mary, you have more of what Secretary Hegseth has said at this hour.
David, the defense secretary goes on to say that this is not the beginning of a war. It is.
And ISIS would not have existed if we didn't do Iraq and all that. I'm not really interested in what Hegseth has to say.
Meeting privately with the families of the fallen, David.
Again, the breaking news, Mary, thank you. The breaking news, the U.S. has launched a large military.
I'm not pre-watching anything, so I don't know if this is going to suck, but I did find something on the petrodollar. There was a video that doesn't seem to be online anymore that was like that was a lot better. Let's see. Nah, we'll just go for this one then. We'll give it a shot. Oh, okay. We got they might kill me for doing an Adam Curtis clip. There's like a 4-minute Adam Curtis clip that's probably good, but
the petrodollar is actually a device invented by Kissinger and Nixon.
The standard of living of all Americans can be traced back to here, the vast oil-rich deserts of Saudi Arabia.
In the early 70s, after the Arab crisis happened with the oil embargoes, OPEC basically tripled the price of oil to the Western world. And at that time, America realized that they were vulnerable because they were importing about 70% of all the oil they consumed.
To secure a reliable foreign source of oil, U.S. President Richard Nixon sent his Secretary of State and National Security Advisor Henry Kissinger to Saudi Arabia for a secret meeting. The result was a pact that still stands to this day.
If Saudi Arabia, which at the time was the world's largest producer of oil, would sell the oil in U.S. dollars, America would defend Saudi Arabia and make sure the House Assad would stay in power.
As a direct result of this U.S.-Saudi agreement, all other oil-producing nations also adopted the dollar as the de facto medium of exchange. Demand for it increased exponentially all over the world, and soon it had a new name, the petrodollar.
Your currency is only as strong as the demand for it, just like anything else, the supply and demand. Why the petrodollar is important, like it causes a demand for the U.S. dollar. A lot of Americans don't realize that over 70% of all $100 bills in the world are actually outside of the U.S. There's more $100 bills in the
and they've convinced everybody else that they benefit from it too. And that's why a lot of people really, kind of look the other way with these wars, because they think that us going into these other countries and stealing their oil is somehow propping up our way of life. And it is propping up our GDP, but our GDP is not really connected to our way of life, which is why, for years they can say the stock market is going up and nobody feels any better,
Russia than there are in America.
This stockpile of U.S. dollars in countries around the world is because oil is bought and sold using the greenback.
If oil starts trading in non-petrodollars, such as gold or a basket of currencies, or if China and Russia start trading in yuan and ruble rather than U.S. dollars, that demand isn't there. And the way of life for the average American will be done. It will be worse than the Great Depression.
See, that's
to date, anyone...
I don't agree with that perspective at all. And I think that that's a lot of the fear mongering that has tried to link our concerns to the general GDP. And I just don't think that's accurate. And I think that's been seen in the past decade, at least, of how people, observe the economy and how they think about it politically.
Who's potentially threatened the status of the petrodollar hasn't fared well. Libyan strongman Muammar Gaddafi publicly pushed for a Pan-African gold-backed currency that he would trade for Libya's oil. He was killed during a US-backed revolution in 2011. And just a few short years before, Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein advocated selling oil for euros.
This hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq.
The US invaded under the guise of looking for WMDs.
Iraq did not have any weapons of mass destruction. And interestingly enough, after the Americans invaded, took over, put in their own government, the whole concept of selling oil in euros never surfaced again.
Today, many countries resent the current petrodollar system, and their leading spokesperson is none other than Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Americans should be very worried about what Putin can do. There is a new Cold War going on. It is the colder war. That is exactly what's going on. And who's in the center?
All right. Well, it's about to the end of that. But so that kind of gives some insight into like why the government cares so much about what's going on in the Middle East and why they care so much about which governments are in power there. With Syria too, I believe that there was concerns with Syria pulling away from the petrodollar. Let me just look that up to make sure I'm not bullshitting. But I'm pretty sure that that Syria was one of the ones that were looking to stay away from it, and specifically Assad, even though Assad had plenty of other issues for sure. That's the problem with a lot of these situations, is it's very easy to paint any government leader anywhere as a tyrant, because they all are. You know, because most governments are tyrannies, or pretty much all of them in my perspective. But yeah, I'm looking through on another page right now, and I'm not seeing anything like I'm not seeing anything definite about Assad pushing for getting away from the petrodollar. But I believe that he wasn't really that involved in it anyway, because he was more so trading with Russia. That would be an interesting thing to look up if I do a standalone video on that. And like I said last night too, I'm also working on a documentary that I have pretty much all written. I just need to like do the recording and video editing about how the Cold War was actually World War III, and we're in World War IV now. And even though it's like just labels, it actually makes a big difference on how you perceive things and how people perceive things in general. And I try to make the case in this documentary that's why these things are described the way that they're described. But yeah, that the petrodollar is one of the main reasons why we care about the Middle East so much. And people say Israel and stuff like that, but like that's why we care about what happens in Israel. And I say we, I really mean like them as the US government. I'm not like a part of that or those decisions. I do not like that verbal habit. So yeah, so there is that. Let's see what else I had to look through tonight. Like I said, I'm just kind of doing a lot of this stuff on the fly pretty much every night around 10, and then I can cut it up for content later. Let's see, I'm gonna stop sharing, and if you have anything that you see as well, throw it in the chat. I'll take any links that are like generally safe, YouTube, Twitter for the most part, probably. I could pre-look at it. But yeah, the other topic that I was going to talk about tonight was this cult thing. A lot of these shootings and stuff that have been happening recently, they don't make no sense. Like as far as motive is concerned, and as far as like the political background of the people involved, and they're often super young, like school shooter types, or even the situation is a school shooting. And you know, the manifestos and stuff like that, and the writings of the people involved with them, and a lot of times it's like confusing psychobabble, and that might just be because people are unhinged and stuff, but in a lot of cases they've shown that there was a lot of planning involved with it. Like they were involved with groups that were specifically trying to create confusing media narratives. And we saw that with the Tyler Robinson situation too, with Charlie Kirk in Utah, like with the things on the bullets and all the weird stuff with that. It was like set up to provoke a response. It was like for the media essentially. And there are these like nihilist online cults that have been like recruiting kids online, and a lot of times it is kids that are involved too. I'm not sure if there's something deeper going on there, but I'll kind of talk about that later. But with a lot of these cases, it's people throwing out multiple different clues that lead in multiple different directions, and in many cases they don't really have any kind of decipherable politics. They're just like they just hate society. They hate life. They don't really see any future in this world. So, they're probably, a lot of them are people who are, not really feeling this world. You know what I'm saying? And they want to go out with a bang, I guess. And there have been, some situations where this is obvious. There was, around that week of the Tyler Robinson thing, there was like 3 or 4 of them. It was a crazy week or two, and most of them had some kind of, it had this kind of vibe, I guess you could say. And there hasn't been a whole lot of stories about it. The government's talked about it a little bit. There's been some stuff on the news about it a little bit, but I think it's starting to look like there is one particularly big case with a celebrity where they might have been involved with this and taken somebody's life. So, I think that it's probably going to become a pretty big story. And it's a really, really messed up situation. And it's also one of those things that it leaves itself open to manipulation, because you have these kind of anonymous groups online where, even if it was started by a couple of teenagers, which I honestly do believe that it was, anybody can join through the ranks and put effort into becoming a part of that community, I guess you could say, and we saw this with Anonymous, the hacker group Anonymous, that I was a spokesperson for a while, until The Atlantic caught me, I guess. They, started out doing really cool things, and then were just constantly misrepresented, and they always are. And like anybody can just join that and say that they're a part of that, and then put out their message. So what I'm trying to get at there is that there have been accusations on some of the news things that I've watched where they're saying like, oh, some foreign government can get in these chat rooms and Telegram or Discord and start convincing kids to do things, to create some kind of a particular I guess degradation of society or something like that. The classic kind of accusation, which all governments pretty much probably do to each other. And my thinking was, yeah, but at the same time, our government can be doing that too. And there is definitely something to be examined there. But I'll take a look at this really quick. favorited, or I saved a couple of that we can watch, and then I'll look at the David situation. But yeah, that guy, I guess he was an R&B singer. I never heard of him until it happened. But he was found with a young child, like cut up in his Tesla, and it's nobody really knows where he is. They think he fled the country. Some people think he fled the country, and this happened like September, and it's now December. It was found in September, and for 3 months they've been trying to figure out like what happened, how this happened, and it was very similar to how these cult situations develop, where he met this young girl on Discord and kind of brought her into his life and stuff. And from there, they were in a relationship for years apparently, and then she just disappeared. So and that now all this really weird stuff's coming out. Like he made a music video where he was like covered in like blood and throwing somebody in a trunk and stuff. So it is super weird stuff. And he had talked in some interviews about how he was involved with weird stuff on the internet. So it is going to be pretty crazy, I think. I'm going to put this on real quick though. Let me share this.
Now warning parents of a new modern-day domestic terrorist group labeled 764 that they say is targeting and exploiting children online. In a recent post on X, FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino writing,
if you guys don't mind, I gotta turn up this
child exploitation ring that often targets children online and forces them into acts of violence, self-harm,
if
animal
it's a
abuse,
problem,
suicide, and sexual abuse. The FBI will keep working day and night to destroy this network. It is a top priority. Some of the FBI's most recent arrests, including in Baltimore, where a suspect was accused of targeting 5 minors, including one as young as 13, and in Arizona, where another alleged member was taken into custody for charges involving 9 victims, ages 11 to 15, accused of distributing child pornography, cyber stalking, and conspiring to provide material support to terrorists. And those not the only alleged ties, as there are over 300 other investigations tied to this group nationwide, including that tragic Antioch High School shooting in January, the Palm Springs fertility clinic bombing that happened in May, the Kenosha, Wisconsin arson spree in June, and those college campus swattings that took place at the start of this past school year. For more on this, we do want to welcome back in Tracy Walder, News Nation national security contributor, former CIA officer and FBI special agent. Tracy, thanks for staying with us on this. Bottom line, what do we need to know about this group?
Well, thank you so much for having me. And I so appreciate, Natasha, that you tied in those other attacks that they are responsible for, many of which you and I have actually talked about on this show, because it really is bigger than what I think a lot of people think, to the point now that they are investigating their connection into those ISIS arrests in Michigan and in Jersey that just happened sort of over the Halloween timeframe, if we remember those. This group was actually founded by a 15-year-old back in 2021, a 15-year-old and at the time a 17-year-old. Both of them have actually been arrested. One is spending 80 years in jail on child pornography charges. And this was really formed to fill sort of that vacuum that existed during the COVID between, of young boys between the ages of 10 to 17. And 764 came from the area code in Texas, where the founder was located.
Wow. I mean, seeking to destroy society seems like a really broad mission. Is that truly what they want? Is that their goal?
Yeah, so we talked about this, actually, you and I, when the fertility clinic explosion happened back in Palm Springs, and we were talking about nihilism. That is what this group believes in, is this idea that there really is no point of living. There's no redeeming qualities in the world. And so as a result, essentially, the world needs to be stopped, which is actually why that fertility clinic was targeted, to try to destroy
this. The only reason why I started going out into that land with thinking about government agents getting into this into a group like this and trying to convince people to do things or to ramp it up is because of how they seem, the kind of situation that was just described, and how much it reminds me of the whole Charles Manson Helter Skelter thing, and how Charles Manson was very likely like an MK Ultra victim, or participant, I guess you could say. It feels weird calling him a victim of anything, but victims, I guess, can be perpetrators too, and often are, I guess, in many cases, or the perpetrators have also been victimized at one point in time that makes them, that way, I guess. But the wild thing about it is that the attacks that appear political are not really from, they go in both directions, and they're not necessarily from a person that even believes in the politics for the violence that they're carrying out. They're just doing it to provoke a reaction from the rest of the world. And that's why it reminds me of the Manson thing, because all those murders that happened with the Tates and everything, it was supposed to be, it was supposed to provoke a media reaction and start like a race war, essentially. That was his alleged plan. And so, you know, I mean, this kind of stuff, it just like, that was what, in the 60s, 70s, in the late 60s, early 70s. So that was like 50 years ago. And it's like these similar things happening in our culture. But that's just stuff that comes to mind. I'm not saying that is like a thing or anything like that. It's just what comes to mind, but I'll continue this.
Or those embryos. That's where this idea of nihilism comes from.
Is this all originating from inside of the U.S.?
So yes and no. So those two founders that I just told you about are, one is in North Carolina, one is in Texas, but there is another individual who was arrested actually in Greece. I personally believe that this is worldwide because they're using platforms like Discord, Telegram, even Roblox to recruit. And we all know that the internet essentially has a worldwide reach.
Yeah.
See, the important thing to note is that this woman has worked for the CIA. I think they introduced her as a former CIA agent or something like that. So of course, when they're going to talk about the non-children groups that are in here, the people who either aren't children or adult, you know, US based predators, she's not going to say, yeah, maybe US intelligence agencies are going to be in there. She's going to be like, yeah, maybe Russia or China or Iran, etc. Whoever the target of the month is.
It's really interesting that there seem to be so many arms to this. It isn't just the sextortion and the grooming of minors that we're seeing. There's also bombings of public places, school shootings as well that they seem to be encouraging. Let's talk about, you know, what parents are certainly really worried about when they look at these reports. What can parents do to protect their kids from having connection, having access in these chat rooms?
So that's the hard part. And that's what I hope I can educate parents on a little bit. I think people don't necessarily understand how Discord works. Discord and Telegram, to be completely honest. They both have chat rooms. This is where a lot of this activity is taking place. The problem with those chat rooms, you have to be invited because you know someone into those chat rooms. So as a parent, that is incredibly difficult to track just from a web perspective. Obviously, Roblox is far easier, in my opinion. I don't think any child should really have unfettered access to that. Those chats are a lot easier. But I think if you're starting to notice behavioral issues, I do think you have to start going through their chats and asking them to show you their Discord.
Yeah, what do you plan to do with your own child when it comes to things like this?
Like, just
yeah, so I guess I'm a mean mom. If you she does not have internet access. I actually do not know how much to play Roblox, even though she is 10. I am vehemently against actually children.
This is
Trinity hides her scars, but can't unsee them.
I look in the mirror now and I still see that engraved in my chest. I really wish it wasn't there.
Trinity says she was forced to carve into her body by members of a violent online network of predators called 764. She says they also forced her to share sexually explicit images and even goaded her on when she attempted suicide.
I was having a mental breakdown and I lifted up my shirt
and
said,
like
they've done to me, look what they've done to me. I can't take this anymore.
Trinity reported her exploitation to the RCMP in Red Deer in July 2021. But she and her mother, Maria, didn't feel their case was being taken seriously until years later when a detective in North Carolina started looking into Trinity's case.
Hearing Trinity say, this is what he did to me, it still is hard to wrap my brain around.
For their safety, we're not using their last names.
Maybe they didn't take it serious that way because she was the one holding the knife, but it should have been taken serious.
Police say 764 and its related groups are terrorizing thousands of children around the world. Its members prowl on popular platforms and lure vulnerable minors into private groups where they push them to self-harm, hurt their pets, and kill themselves.
The most horrendous part about it is
No Lives Matter, 764 and No Lives Matter. They're connected. And there's a couple of other ones that are of similar, you know, but it's, yeah.
Minors doing this to minors. And we're talking about 13-year-olds targeting 16-year-olds, 16-year-olds sextorting 11-year-olds.
Alberta police identified the first official 764 case in Canada last year when they arrested a 14-year-old in Lethbridge. Argentino says there are now likely members and victims in every province and territory, and the threat is moving offline. A recent school shooting in Nashville is linked to 764. Several stabbings in Sweden and the murder of an elderly woman in Romania are also tied to the group. The RCMP now calls 764 a terror threat.
There is active threat actors, including in Canada, that are actively engaging in violent acts on children and encouraging them to commit terrorist attacks.
RCMP issued a public safety advisory last summer, 3 years after Trinity went to police.
I am glad that they're listening now. I don't ever want to watch another child suffer the way that my child suffered.
The FBI and the RCMP have spoken to the family in recent months, but no one has been held accountable for Trinity's abuse.
Joanna, it is shocking that most of these cases involve minors victimizing minors. What's next for those who've been convicted?
Many of them in the U.S. especially are serving long sentences.
At the center of this case is the 14-year-old suspect's apparent tie to that specific online hate group. The FBI has raised concerns about this group over the last year.
Investigative reporter Adrian Thomas has previously reported on this group. He joins us in the studio with a closer look.
This was 5 months ago.
This group, known as 764, according to the U.S. Justice Department, has a global online reach via encrypted messaging apps. This comes just days after we initially told you about the rise of groups like 764, which are sometimes called Gore groups. Here's a closer look at what this group is and what the country's top law enforcement officials are saying about this trend. What's the prevalence of some of these kinds of cases in Oregon and the jurisdiction that you cover?
It's here. I mean, it's definitely here. I know of 2 cases that have been fully adjudicated and then 4 active cases that we're working on right now. That doesn't mean we are a hotspot for this type of activity. It just means we're not free of that type of activity.
That's FBI Special Agent in Charge Olson speaking to us about violent online groups targeting youth, sometimes called Gore groups. Just days before Olson and other local and federal law enforcement announcing they had thwarted a mass shooting plot by a local teenager. That teen's defense attorney saying in initial court hearings he was influenced by online hate group 764. According to the U.S. Department of Justice, 764 is a violent online network that exploits vulnerable populations like minors and glorifies violence, self-harm, and often sexually exploits minors that they target through encrypted messaging apps. In the case of the alleged shooting and bomb plot at the Three Rivers Mall in Kelso, court proceedings reveal the teen in question posted the plans in an online chat tied to 764, where he included a route to the mall where he said he would detonate a chlorine bomb to incite panic, then begin shooting as people fled. Back in the spring, the U.S. Department of Justice arrested and charged some of the main figures behind this group. The federal complaint alleging the men in charge ran a child exploitation enterprise. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi has called the activity of these groups, quote, some of the most heinous online child exploitation enterprises we have ever encountered. And the next.
So yeah, I think that situation, if you think about that, would happen with Tyler Robinson and the way that his personality was described and the way that his kind of radicalization was described, it is pretty much identical to that. And you know, that hasn't really come up because I think they were really trying to create a narrative in the beginning there. It's because they wanted to ramp up a bunch of anti-leftist sentiment, and ultimately probably they wanted to get laws behind it as well, and they were trying to do all sorts of crazy shit after he was killed. But I do think that a couple of days ago it started to go around that this David guy was a part of this group, and this has been a pretty big story for a couple months now. Like I said, it was why isn't it not coming up now? That's weird. Let's see. I don't know if I should check Reddit because that was where it was originally. Let's see. Oh, it's over an hour long. Oh, it's this one. Okay, never mind. That one's no good. I saw that earlier. I guess we could watch this guy's then. This Trapmore guy. I'm not really the biggest fan of this guy, but he actually did have some good research on this one. Let's see. Where is David 764? Yeah, like I don't. Let's see. React. There we go. Here it is. This guy, I don't know much about him, but he has been all over this story. So oh shit. I didn't switch the
Trapmore gang, this David
there we
situation.
go.
Just take a look at this. This is crazy.
To an FBI warning about a criminal network targeting kids at home. ABC News joined with some of our owned and affiliate stations across the country to investigate the threat. Chief Justice Correspondent Pierre Thomas is here. Well, they found. Morning, Pierre.
George, good morning. The FBI is warning that this new network has a potential national security implication, but also in case after case, directly reaching into American homes, targeting teens and their families. Its name, 764.
He's watching.
Total, and the U.S. Department of Justice considers it. Apparently started in 2019. Bro, this is insane. You're not going to believe what I'm going to tell you, okay? It's actually insane. This is apparently an international neo-Nazi and nihilistic online organization that was responsible for several acts of child exploitation. Several of the organization's leaders were arrested in the US for producing bad stuff, very bad stuff that I can't even know I want to say, and coercing minors to hurt themselves, okay? According to the police, Cult has exploited approximately 2 minors in California, 16 minors around the world in total, and the US Department of Justice considers it an online group that espouses neo-Nazism, nihilism, and PDF things at its core principles. Cult is affiliated with the COM, a broad network of international cyber criminals. Cult became known after one of its leaders, Caleb Merritt, was caught and convicted of R-wording a girl and taking inappropriate pictures. Apparently, this was created in 2019 by an Indian school student named Rohan Rain. Cult started out as a Discord community, sound familiar? With a couple hundred members. I'm honestly scared, who were followers of various far-right ideologies. Rohan then started attracting underage girls from all over the world to join his community and chat with him and cult members. Eventually, he managed to convince them into sending illicit photos of themselves and using them to blackmail them into doing...
Yeah, there was... he met this, like, 12, 11-year-old girl, this guy, David. And it seems very similar. And it was, like, this famous dude that was quite possibly involved with this.
Because like most of these people that play video games the same way I do, they're going to as an escape. So I was just being an open door and an open outlet for like these my peers and my friends to kind of just like vent to me about different things in their like personal lives and stuff like that. And I would basically just take their lives and write songs about them and write songs for them. And they didn't even know it. Like it was just the most beautiful thing. And it's just such a poetic thing to kind of be able to kind of take somebody's life and put that in a
the way he just said take somebody's life is crazy. Listen to this.
Beautiful thing. And it's such a poetic thing to kind of be able to kind of take somebody's life and put that in.
That little pause afterwards, he said it's such a great thing to be able to take somebody's life.
And check this
out.
out.
Celeste lookalike, okay, and the song's all about murdering a romantic partner. How are you putting this out there? That's a Celeste lookalike in the video. What do you think we're dumb? Is that a bunch of tools being unrolled? Like what the hell? Look at this. It's just, and he's talking about, oh, you know, I just took people's lives from Discord. I heard in that news report those weird satanic symbols.
Yeah, it's like almost exactly like the murder was described in his music video, and it was a person that looked like the girl. And the video was shot before her death, apparently, which makes it even weirder. And yeah, that this dude is probably missing. And then there's this other, if you want to get real deep and weird into it, they're saying that his logo has a 7 and a 6 and a 4 in it, which, you know, I can see that being a thing. It is some creepy shit. I'm not trying to like jack the dude's content, so I'm flipping through it a little bit. But he did find some really key details, so I wanted to give him credit.
This man is deranged. Look at his face when he says that. He says, cannot disclose who the voice is. What? Because of copyright.
Oh, yeah.
What do you mean because of copyright? They're on your album. You put them on your album. This is actually one of the most unhinged things I've seen from him yet. Honestly, this is actually one of the...
Yeah, her voice was on his album, and he couldn't. He didn't want to say nothing about it publicly. But look at this. Hold up. Where is this? He's dragging a body. You know what I'm saying? And this video came out before the murder, and that girl kind of looks like the girl that's that ultimately died.
Birthday. He was found in your trunk. What the hell?
And I didn't do a music video yet. It was so cool to kind of be able to express that finally, and it stuck with the fans and it stuck with me, so he's here to stay.
When we listen to the album, is there a story? Is there a through line?
There is definitely a through line from start to finish. And the great thing about that is I'm actually doing a merch piece, not a merch piece, but like I did a journal where I documented behind the scenes every song and the motivations and backstories behind each track in detail, which is going to be released very, very soon.
But yeah, I mean, it is wild, and the whole thing, like I've been paying attention to it for the past few months, even though I never heard of this dude, because it was just so weird that a body was found in dude's trunk and he was not arrested immediately. And everybody's just like, we don't know what happened. And there's all this drama between the cops and the coroner. Like apparently the coroner and the cops in LA don't get along. And this is most likely because of the LAPD's corruption. And they're fighting back and forth, especially in regards to this case, but they have issues generally. And yeah, they have been trying to the cops have been trying to get them to withhold information and not reveal information to the public. And they've been keeping things very, very secretive, while the coroner has been basically just releasing, leaking things to TMZ on a regular basis. So the public has been getting details about it, but you know, it's been leaked and very, very slowly. Actually, somebody called this 3 months ago. Wow. On Reddit. That's pretty crazy. And this guy says the same modus operandi, Fortnite and Roblox phishing. And yeah, because he met that girl on Fortnite when she was like 11 or something like that. Private Discord. Yeah, and that's what happened next pretty much. And yeah, and that is wild. That somebody called that like 3 months ago, because I wasn't certainly thinking about it back then. But yeah, the situation has gotten quite crazy. And with all the things that have come out in the past couple of days, like he had he bought a burn cage, like this thing that you can essentially cremate a body in. So it's really weird that they ended up actually finding it. Like he just parked it a couple of blocks away from his house and let it sit there for months or something. So there's something going on there that doesn't make much sense. But I do think that this whole like cult thing, this whole blackmail cult, because that's essentially what's happening here, is the people that are driven to do these things are often being blackmailed. And you know, there are different ways that people extort them, whether it's information or whether it's like photos that they've shared. But while I'm on that topic, actually, I want to look up something that I saw last week, because I do think that this whole like blackmailing people into doing mass acts of violence is probably something that's becoming more common. A couple weeks ago, there was that guy from Afghanistan that shot the 2 National Guards people in DC. And he used to work for the CIA, and they recruited him when he was like 15, when when the US government invaded Afghanistan. And they trained him to, you know, join a US-backed death squad against his own people. And obviously that probably traumatized him, but regardless, he seemed very supportive of the US and came to the US and lived here for many years and a normal life until he freaked out and shot those people in DC. But it came out about a week later, and it got buried in the news, that he was potentially blackmailed to do that. Now they say it was the Taliban who blackmailed him, which is plausible, considering they're probably you would imagine that they're going after collaborators in various ways, even the ones that got out. And the alleged thing was that they contacted him somehow and said that they were going to hurt his family if he didn't do this stuff. So let us take a look at some of these. Let's take a look at this one, I guess.
First court hearing for the man accused of killing a National Guard soldier and wounding another revealed new information about last week's attack just blocks from the White House. The suspect faces murder and other charges. He appeared on video at Tuesday's hearing from his hospital bed. Nicole Skenga has the latest.
Newly released surveillance images revealed in court documents appear to show the suspect standing near a busy Washington, D.C. metro station before turning a corner and opening fire at members of the National Guard. He allegedly was shouting Allahu Akbar, Arabic for God is greatest. 20-year-old specialist Sarah Beckstrom and 24-year-old Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf were struck in the head. The gunman then engaged in a shootout with another guardsman and at one point bent down next to the wounded soldiers before being shot at by an uninjured guardsman while reloading. The suspect remains hospitalized, as does Staff Sergeant Wolf. Specialist Beckstrom died Thanksgiving Day. The alleged shooter, Rahmanullah Lakhanwal, served on a CIA-backed operations team in his native Afghanistan before he fled to the U.S. in 2021 and was granted asylum earlier this year. In response to the shooting, the Trump administration is now halting all immigration applications from 19 countries. And officials tell CBS News the administration is also considering expanding the travel ban list from 19 to around 30 countries. Lakhanwal has pleaded not guilty to murder, assault, and firearms charges.
This individual was brought into this country as a result of the largesse of the American people.
The hell? Let's see if we got this. Okay, here we got a news article. This can work. Let's see what it says. Officials are reportedly investigating whether the Taliban blackmailed National Guard shooting suspect into carrying out the attack near the White House last week, which killed one soldier and seriously wounded another. Lakhanwal, who was arrested after allegedly firing on a guards troops outside of the Farragut West metro station. I'm around DC and I don't even know where that is an Afghan national who served in US-backed forces battling the Taliban in his home country. Let's see. Investigators are probing whether threats against his remaining family in Afghanistan were used to coerce him into carrying out the shooting. It's by no means our only line of inquiry. People in this country have no idea about the level of stress these people are under. Most of them have families back home, and if the Taliban cannot get to them, they are making it very clear that they will go after their families. So this is at least the cover story for the situation, but he's pled not guilty, and that will likely be his defense, that he was blackmailed. And like so many of the stories that we just went through were these mass acts of violence where people were carrying them out because they were blackmailed. And it just makes you wonder how many of the situations that we see are a result of that. And I don't know if that is like something that you can look at in a positive way, or if it is it is a disturbing thing. But at the same time, like, you can kind of look at it like you know, it's not like society is necessarily like falling apart in that regard. It is, but it's not like we're all going completely crazy. There is some logic behind these things that don't make a ton of sense in a lot of cases. So yeah, I think those were the main things that I wanted to cover tonight. I appreciate people joining me tonight and throwing things down in the chat. If anybody has anything else, I'm happy to grab it, but I think that covers everything that I wanted to discuss tonight. I'm really going to try to do this every night at 10 p.m. and go for at least an hour. Thank you. And yeah, I'll just wing it, you know, because I backed away from things for many years. And I mean, I was writing and blogging about all this kind of stuff very early days of the internet. And then over the past 10 years, a lot of things happened, both with me personally and with the political landscape in general. Like, I had my battle with cancer that I had to kind of get my life together after that. And then, you know, everybody knows what happened like over the past 10 years politically, and it's not just one thing. And it's just a matter of like the coalitions that existed that I had built platforms on many years ago fractured and don't exist anymore. So that's kind of why I'm starting from scratch now. But I'm ready to do that. And yeah, I appreciate y'all joining me, and I'll catch you tomorrow at 10. Peace. I just realized I have to click end stream before I click leave studio. There we go.